It is real.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting for Weld County School District 6. This is the 10th day of May 2021. This meeting will now come to order. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Crane, will you call the roll for us, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Present.
Mrs. Mash?
Present.
Mr. Matthews?
Present.
Mrs. Mueller?
Present.
Ms. Pappas?
Present.
Mrs. Solis?
Present.
Mr. Talley?
Present.
7 members present.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Well, this is our last board meeting before the end of school. It's amazing. We have just less than 2 weeks of school left, and it seemed like an appropriate time just to say, and not to tempt fate in any way, but congratulations well done on what has to be one of the most difficult school years that we have experienced as a board, and maybe one of the most difficult that any board has done in recent memory. And so just we want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to our parents who trusted us in the beginning to take care of their children in the midst of a pandemic. Thank you to our teachers who went back at the beginning when so many teachers around the country were afraid to do that. Thank you to our kids. It's amazing that they've done what nobody thought they could do, that kindergartners wore masks and kindergartners learned to use Zoom. And we had kindergarten teachers who did what nobody thought could be done and get kids to use Zoom when they barely know their letters. And high school teachers that taught online and in person all at the same time, and high school students that took band when they wanted to take theater, and theater when they wanted to take band, and cooperated with our cohorts, and the parents again that stepped up and took care of kids when the kids were quarantined. It is an amazing effort by everyone, and we all should look to the person to your right and the person to your left, to the parents and the teachers and the administrators, and especially to our students. As always, our students come first and say, job well done. We've done what again, many thought couldn't be done, and it's been an amazing year. And I'm one of those people that believes adversity can lead us to places we could never go otherwise, and that adversity actually can take us to greater heights. And if that's true, we're exceptionally excited about the 2021-2022 school year. So thanks again to everybody. We're going to thank especially our nurses here in a little bit, so I won't say too much for them right now, but they've done an amazing job as well. That is all I have tonight. Ms. Crane, is there anyone that needs to speak to us at this portion of our meeting? Okay, well, we will skip over that. And Ms. Crane, then will you give us our work session report?
Board of Education President Michael Matthews began the work session with comments and updates from board members, and then proceeded to review the calendar of upcoming events. Superintendent Dr. Deirdre Pilch and Chief Financial Officer Megan Sponsler provided a brief update on the 2021-2022 budget. Legal counsel Nathan Fall provided a legislative update, and the board discussed community engagement and debriefed the work session to conclude.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Now to our superintendent's report. So Dr. Pilch.
Thank you, President Matthews. Well, I don't think I can really follow the board president report nearly as well as I would hope. I really appreciate your words to our community, to our students, to our staff. I couldn't have said it any better myself. So I'll just look to the future a little bit, and following on your congratulations and thank yous to our community that, we are gearing up for a big push around summer session. And so if we have families out there who are wondering about their child's eligibility for that summer session, they should reach out to their school and inquire about those possibilities. But we're gearing up for a big summer to do some catching up for our students and to begin to fill some of those holes and losses that our students have experienced during the last year or so. And then we're going to be ready for school next fall. So we're gearing up to get ready for that. I know there's a lot of questions around, will we be in masks or not in masks? And, will we need to take temperatures? Will we be physically distanced? And we do plan to have that information put together and able to provide at least what we know to parents by or before July 1st. And we know that it may change again after that. We're hearing the state will give us new guidance in mid-July. We just felt like that was too late to wait. So we will have some information for parents here in the next couple of months so they know what to expect in the fall. But it is certainly our hope that as things begin to look more and more typical, we begin to have graduations and we've had our proms and we're having end of year programs and ceremonies and activities, that we can begin to move into more typical activities certainly as we move into the fall also. So lots to look forward to. I know people are tired. I know our educators are tired. I know parents are tired of quarantine. Students are tired of quarantine. And I just want to reassure everybody that everybody's working really, really hard to keep as many kids in school and staff in school every single day. And we're going to continue to follow the guidelines that we've been given by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and our local health officials. So thank you. And I look forward to recognizing our health services folks tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. Well, we need to approve an agenda for tonight. So if someone would be so kind as to make a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Yes, one moment, please. Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item is our consent agenda, and we'll need a motion for this one as well.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves items as presented on the consent agenda and authorizes the officers to sign any and all contracts.
Second.
Thank you both. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, Ms. Crane.
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you again, Ms. Crane. Our next item is our Greeley Education Association Starfish Award, and I'd like to invite Ms. Andy Lee, our GEA president, to the podium.
Hello, President Matthews and Board of Education members. I'm excited and a little sad because this is going to be the last Starfish of our school year. And I saved one of the best for last. We're honoring our nurses this year. And really, they've been the hidden heroes. We've all been heroes. I mean, our students have been heroes for coming every day. The parents have done an amazing job helping us get the learning to happen, and our educators have done a wonderful job. But our nurses and our health clerks have really spearheaded this entire ability to be able to be at school. They were able to take a system that people said was never going to happen, couldn't happen, not functional, it won't work, and they made it so that our students could be where they needed to be in our classrooms learning. Sometimes our classrooms had to be virtual. Sometimes our classes got to be in person. But it's this group that allowed all of us to be able to do the job that we are here to do, which is to teach and educate students. So I had the privilege of being in Lynn's life for a couple of hours at Scott. And let me tell you what, I thought I was walking into something that I could manage. I'm a highly trained, highly competent educator, and I had no clue what these folks do behind the scenes. So Lynn was not only responsible for dealing with COVID and contact tracing, but she was also dealing with another potential health issue that, thank goodness, just ended up being a tummy upset. But when you have 30 middle schoolers with a tummy upset, it's a little concerning. And I didn't have to make the call as the teacher. The principal didn't have to make the call. These are the ladies and gentlemen who make the call. They are the health professionals. They are the ones who, in between making these very important decisions, they nurture and they care for the little ones who are coming into the health clerk's office, and they take temperatures and they fix owies and they talk about burns. And sometimes it's just do you need to lay down for a while? And sometimes it's life and death. And that's what I realized. I do not deal with the situation where I have to deal with life and death decisions. I don't, and I'm very grateful. When Lynn has a bad day, it's a life and death decision. And for that reason, we are so very grateful to have such highly trained nurses in our district, so that not only do we keep our students safe at school, but we can extend that safety and keep them safe at home as well. So I'm just honoring Lynn, but really what I'm doing is I'm using Lynn as an example to showcase everything that these nurses do every single day to help us do our job, which is to educate students. And we couldn't do it without them. We couldn't have a football team without the nurses. We couldn't do anything without our nurses, because without our nurses, we can't have kids in our system. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Lori. And thank you for using this night as a way to honor nurses and health clerks, because they really are unsung heroes. So Mr. Matthews, we're going to call you on up. Actually, the Board of Education, you've all stood by us. I'd like you all to come up. We're going to do a group photo. Socially distanced and safe. Dr. Pilch, come on up. Thank you. That was
I know you can socially distance and me still get this photo, so I gotta tell you that. Yeah, just hurry. Just hurry. I'm not gonna be able to get you all in there. Trying to social distance. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
I don't know what I'm gonna say now.
Yes.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Ms. Lee, always for recognizing our teachers, and you've done an amazing job of just pointing out different teachers this year who are who have faced different challenges over the year. So it's been very educational for us. So we appreciate what you've done this year in doing that. Next item of business is a recognition and appreciation of health clerks, school nurse consultants, and other health team support members. And so, Dr. Pilch, I will give this portion of the meeting to you.
Thank you, President Matthews. I think Andy Lee, our GA president, did an excellent job talking about the role of our nurses in our school district. And behind all of those nurses are our health clerks. And behind those health clerks are other backup staff who support the health clerks when the health clerk has to be out of the building, and have done a lot of this COVID response work. None of us could have predicted over a year ago the demand that would be put on our health services team. And I know Lori McCarty, our coordinator for health services, has sat in this boardroom with you before and answered questions about our COVID response. But, we thought that there'd come a time when actually the work would be lessened, like COVID would slow up, or that the community would have a better handle on contact tracing, and we wouldn't have to take such a large role in contact tracing. But what we have found throughout this school year is our health services team have just continued to take on more and more and more. So I want to just walk through some of that just really quickly. We started out the year with them supporting and taking lead in many cases on contact tracing. And so that meant they had to train health clerks and building COVID champions in how to contact trace. And then they had to build, Lori and others had to build a way to keep track of all of that data. As we knew, we would need to know who has been exposed, who's positive for COVID, who's on quarantine and for how long. And there has been training after training that the health services team, with Lori's leadership, that they have conducted for staff throughout the district and at our charter schools. And then she has been our primary person, and with the backup of her other nurses, well, the health clerks are backing the nurses up in the building, by the way. She has been the person to pull the information off of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment website, off the Weld County Department of Public Health and Environment website, to scour through the governor's orders to help us to make sense of the rules that were coming down to us from the Colorado Department of Ed and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. This health services team has had to make sense of what did all those regulations and requirements mean. And then they had to help us figure out, how do we do temperature checking? And what are the questions and which questions matter as teachers and students report to the school? And then they are the ones, and their team are the ones that have to deliver a message when a child has to be quarantined, or a staff member has to be quarantined, or they have COVID. And so many times they're the ones getting that angry phone call back, because nobody wants their child quarantined, right? No staff member wants to be quarantined. And so that frustration is going to be directed somewhere, and it often was directed at our health services team. And you know, I said it earlier, and so did you, Mr. Matthews. Everyone has worked differently and harder and more, just more hours and more work. I don't know, just more. We've all done a lot more. But when you have a pandemic, there is no question that the health services team is going to take on more of that burden than anybody else in the system. And for that, we just want to recognize Lori McCarty, our coordinator for nurse services, and the entire health services team here in the district, and all the folks who have backed up this team. We are so fortunate. We were able to open and stay open because of this team. As Andy said, without the health services team, you can't have school. And she's right. If we had not had this team in place, we would not have been able to open. It's that simple. And so, Lori, on behalf of the Board of Education, a huge heartfelt thank you to you and all of your colleagues. I know you're tired, and I am hopeful that COVID is going to take June off. I'm hopeful for that. Lori told me today, COVID is not going to take June off, Dr. Pilch. So anyway, with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Dr. Dattery, who oversees the Health Services Department, and let her say a few words herself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. I have the privilege of being able to meet with Lori and the Health Services team to really do all the things that Dr. Pilch just shared. They have provided dependability in our system during unprecedented times, as we well know. And for that, we will be eternally and really always grateful to you and to all of your folks for what you've done to lead our system. Leading during these times was never short of, thank you. Leading during these times was never short of its challenges. And so we wanted to just take a moment to, I'm gonna pop up a video and just to share with you all the faces and the names of our nurses.
Stacy, while you're getting that going, I just want to say one more thing that I didn't say, and that is the testing. They set up testing in every one of our school sites. And when we started, we said, maybe we could do 5 sites.
Right.
But because of this team, we have testing at every site. We have a stand-up test center right here at the district office. And, other districts did not do that, or they hired an outside agency in most cases to do that. We did that with our own team. All right. Thank you, Dr. Dattery.
Thank you. So I'm going to start by sharing with you our registered nurses. First, Angela Erdman. She is our registered nurse at Bella Romero, Heath, and Salida del Sol. Next is Beth Lee. She's our nurse at both Martinez Elementary and Frontier Academy. Karen Ishmael is at Meeker Elementary, and she serves Greeley Central High School. Diane Phillips is at Winograd K-8 and at Northridge High School for us. Elizabeth Eberhard, amazing work at Dos Rios, Jackson, and Chapelo K-8. Jackie Legg is at Shawsheen and Jefferson Junior High School. Jane Stevens is new to us this year. She is at Greeley West High School. Jennifer Berg Ramsey, she serves Hyman, Fred Chartis, UC Elementary, and our preschool. And then we have Jennifer Clark is at Madison, ECA Gap, and Next. Kelly Stanley is at Maplewood, McAuliffe, and Mumford this year. Lori Kingsley is at Brentwood, Prairie Heights, and Westridge Academy. And then Lynn Decker, who you met earlier tonight, is at Scott Franklin. She helps our transitions program and UC Prep. And finally, Rachel Thomas is at Centennial and Jefferson Senior High School. We then have a health clerk at every one of our schools, and I just want to honor them and share with you who they are, starting first with Alicia Hernandez at Greeley West High School. Then we have Alma Cisneros. She is our health clerk at Preschool Child Find and at the Early Childhood Center. Austin Beklachik is at Fred Chartis. Vaclavic, I think is how you say it, actually, thank you. And then Brianna Strybeck is at Bella Romero. Alita Ramirez is at Early College Academy. Erica Castro, she helps us at Jefferson Junior High School as well as Gap, Next, and Transition. And then Erica Romero is at Prairie Heights Middle School. Gilberta Orozco is at Martinez Elementary. Irene Trevino Rivera is at Centennial Elementary. Jamie Mejia is at McCullough STEM Academy K-8. Jessica Rogakis is our health clerk at Winograd K-8. Karen Hansen is at Jackson Elementary. And Kelly Henson is at Northridge High School. Lisa McLaughlin is at Meeker Elementary. Lori Montgomery, Dos Rios Elementary. Mandy Duncan is at Madison Elementary. And Martha Rascon is at Scott Elementary School. McKinley Nyberger is at Heath Middle School. Nicole Missy Tejerina is at Brentwood Middle School. Patricia Marufo is at Jefferson Senior High School. Renee Lang is our health clerk at Mumford Elementary. Rose Downs is at Chapelo K-8. And then Shannon Forbes is our health clerk at Shawsheen Elementary. Sherry Morin is at Franklin Middle School. Shirley Walton is at Bella Romero Academy at both the K-3 and 4-8. And then Terry Strachan is at Hyman Elementary. Tina Alvarez is at Greeley Central High School. And Yolanda Trujillo is at Maplewood Elementary. And then I want to share with you our charter school health clerks, Sonia Baxley, Courtney Stanley, Annie Patton, Lupita Mesa, Nan Lee, Anadine Tapia, and Debbie Nestor. And then, of course, our coordinator, Miss Lori McCarty. Thank you so much again for all that you do. We cannot thank you enough. And Mr. Michael Matthews actually has just a certificate that he'd like to share with you. We'll send to all of our health clerks and nurses certificates. say a few words?
I think everybody said everything already that I was going to say. It's been a year that we're going to look back on, like people look back on their war years, I think. Well, we've gained a lot, learned a lot, but we've managed to keep the kids in school for the most part, and that was our goal. So thank you very much.
We have one more recognition, and this one's a student recognition. And Dr. Pilch, I'll give this to you.
Thank you, President Matthews. I'm going to turn it over to Chief of Communications, Mrs. Teresa Myers.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pilch, President Matthews, and members of the Board of Education. Normally tonight we would have a room full of kids, and I'm sorry that we didn't choose to do that this year. We had quite a few of our student spotlight kids, and this is a rough time of the year for them to come anyway because there's a lot of awards and activities going on. But tonight we will recognize them virtually. And these are the students who are nominated by their schools to be part of the Student Spotlight program. And I'll direct you to our video that's just going to run in the background and feature all of our 23 students who were recognized this year in our Student Spotlight series. Every year we honor students from our K, middle, and high schools. Through their own internal process, our schools nominate these students for this honor. These students not only excel in academics, but often they're amazing musicians, athletes. They serve in clubs and community groups. They're advocates for themselves and for other students, and really they're just leaders in their schools. And we're just honored to be able to get to know these kids and to tell their stories to our community. Like I said, this year we honored 23 students from our non-charter schools. Because of COVID-19, we got started late with this program. We weren't exactly sure how to do it, but we ended up being able to videotape all the students through Zoom, and it worked out great. They were awesome and cooperative and fun and engaging, and we enjoyed getting to meet them. And then, of course, we feature their profiles on our website as well. All of these year's nominees are also featured on the south wall of our administration building as you walk into the entrance there. So I encourage you to look at those as you're going by. Those are this year's honorees that are up there. And we have sent each student in each school building a copy of those placards for their own use too. So we're excited for them to have those. One change this year, we did end up losing our grant funding for the Greeley Tribune ads that we usually ran for these students. So we chose to do it not do it this year and possibly look for another funding source for that. But honestly, we did social media posts and the videos and the website, and we got great feedback from those. So we're excited that most of the community still got to see our honorees. So if anyone of you or anyone in the community would like to view the videos of these students or see their profiles, you can go to www.greeleyschools.org/spotlight, or you can go to our Greeley Schools YouTube channel, and all of their videos are still featured there, and we'll keep them up this year. We are excited, even though it was a little bit different this year, we're excited to still be able to tell the stories of our students and honor these students from our schools. And I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you have.
Ms. Elise.
I know this takes a lot of work, but it's so important to recognize these kiddos. And what I love about it is, I mean, these are the faces you see in our community. It's very reflective of what our community is. And the fact that we acknowledge and see them and, you know, recognize their contributions and all their hard work, that has to be pretty exciting. So, and I appreciate the things that you put up in the administration building. I love watching and looking at those as I come into the building for our school board meetings. So thank you for continuing to do this, even though it's a difficult time. It's always important that we recognize our kiddos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elise. Thank you, Ms. Myers. And congratulations to our students who are recognized. Our next item of business is revisions to our J student policies and regulations. And Dr. Pilch, I think these are just cleaning up some language and some pretty pretty routine things, but is there anything you would like to add to these?
No, I think that you all have had a chance to review these and had your questions answered, so I'm good with proceeding.
Okay. Well, would someone, this is an action item, so would someone be so kind as to make a motion?
I don't think it is.
It's not an action item? I'm sorry. I'm having trouble with the Wi-Fi. Staying connected for some reason.
Why is it not an action item?
I
It's
move that
not?
the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the revisions to the J student policies as presented.
Yes.
Second.
Thank you both. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Ms. Crane, will you give us a vote, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Our next item are revisions to policy KB, parent involvement in education. And again, I think this is just cleaning up some language and adding family to parents. But Dr. Pilch, is there anything else we need to know about these policies?
Just a reminder that there was new legislation enacted in the previous legislative session that has caused much of these revisions. I did hear from a couple of board members today about getting the language consistent with parent and family both throughout the document. And I think we've made those changes and cleaned it up, and hopefully it meets with your satisfaction.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. This is an action item, and we'll need a motion to proceed.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the revisions to policy KB, parent involvement in education as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Any discussion or question from board members? Seeing none, Ms. Crane.
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. One more. Revisions to Regulation LBD-R, Relations with District Charter Schools, Procedures for Establishment, Review, Renewal, Revocation, and Closure. And so, Dr. Pilch, is there anything we need to know about this one?
I will just add that this gets us in line with state policy and procedure, and part of having a new, fairly new legal counsel on staff is he has been able to begin to review some of these policies that had not been updated for quite a while, and this would be one of those. And this gets us in line with our current practice as well as the state requirements.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. This also is an action item, so we'll need a motion to proceed.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the revisions to Regulation LBD-R, Relations with District Charter Schools, Procedures for Establishment, Review, Renewal, Revocation, and Closure as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Is there any discussion or questions from board members on this one? Seeing none, Ms. Crane.
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item is the Innovation 2020 Update, Student Learning and Achievement Priority 2, Graduation Rates Update, a breakdown by subgroups. And so, Dr. Pilch, I will give this presentation to you.
Thank you, President Matthews, and Mr. Anthony Osmus is making his way to the podium. I'll just remind you that we have presented graduation rate data to you previously for the graduation rate in 2020. So I know we're coming up close on 21, but this is last year's data, and there was a request to provide you with the data by subgroup, and so we've asked Mr. Osmus to provide that tonight.
So good evening, Board President Matthews, members of the board, Dr. Pilch. It is my pleasure to provide an update on the graduation rates by subgroup. We presented the overall graduation rates a few weeks ago, but tonight we will dive just a little bit deeper. As we know, every student deserves access to a quality education that ensures he or she graduates high school and is ready for college or a career. Our students really do come first, and every child matters. This work fits under student learning and achievement, and it really, though, starts in kindergarten, and it is supported by every grade level and every individual in our system. Specifically, our work is to align our systems so that each student has a personalized learning plan preparing them to graduate on time. And our outcome is that by 2021, 90% of our students will graduate on time. Now, this slide should look familiar. It shows our overall district graduation rate, which is currently at 82%. Compared to the state, we also talked about our special education graduation rate, the rate for our English language learners, and our economically disadvantaged, all of which trend positively. Let's take a deeper dive into our subgroups. Again, this is the rate for all students. This is our graduation rate for students with disabilities. Around 2018, we implemented our special education plan, which focused on getting students in the classroom and supporting them as they received grade level instruction. Around the same time, we implemented co-teaching, which put another teacher in selected core classes for students needing extra support. As you can see, with higher levels of rigor, with the right support, showed significant improvement. Shortly before our special education plan, we implemented our master plan for EL success, which focused on instructional strategies supported by our partners at West Ed. We also started to use CLD teachers as co-teachers to support students with in-class instruction with fewer pull-out classes. This led to greater engagement, stronger academic discourse, and growth each year for these scholars. Our shift to an inclusive mindset, co-teaching, access to rigorous instruction, and solid instructional strategies showed gains in other subgroups as well. This graph shows our economically disadvantaged group and their growth in relation to the state average. The past few years, we have intentionally focused our efforts on becoming more culturally responsive, which has shown higher student engagement, greater student satisfaction, and significant gains in the graduation rate for our students of color. This work has improved communication with students and families around the importance of graduation and an overall school-wide appreciation for the assets that diversity brings. Our last slide is our non-free reduced, non-special education, and non-language learner group. And this data show that these students are also growing steadily. This is only our district data, as the state does not publish this subgroup. All in all, we are seeing growth in every subgroup and continue to outperform the state average for on-time graduation. This work is not done. We have this as a focus in our I-2030 plan as well, which you're all a part of. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I do think we have some questions or comments for you. And so, Ms. Pappas.
Thank you for bringing us this data. It's good to see it broken down like that. I just want to there's a lot that has gone into this other than us just seeing a graph with the instructional practices. What stands out to me in this subgroup, the limited English proficient students, just the fact that we made a conscious effort to have all students have access to grade level content. And so it's just pretty reinforcing to see what happens when you know that kids can learn the content. And so I appreciate this. I appreciate you bringing this to us tonight. And thank you, and thank your staff, and a special thank you to all the teachers that are refining and working on classroom practices to make sure every student can learn. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pappas. Any other questions or comments from board members? Again, I would just echo those thanks, Mr. Osmus. These are some amazing statistics to look at, and how I know as Ms. Papa said, there's a lot of work that goes behind those numbers, and getting our kids to achieve in that way, to see us 6 percentage points and 10 percentage points ahead of the state in certain subgroups. Meaningful subgroups. When you talk about economically disadvantaged and how many kids in our district are economically disadvantaged, that's incredible. So thank you to your team and our schools for this information.
Absolutely, and thank you for supporting our work.
Our next item is a bond update, and so Dr. Pilch, this is also yours, but I see Mr. Henson coming to the podium. Is there anything you need to say before he gives us this update?
Just a reminder that Mr. Henson is our Assistant Superintendent of Support Services and our chief worrier around all things bond issue for District 6, and we're excited to give you an update tonight.
Okay, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I love giving updates. So I have, and I know you've already previewed this, I have a few pictures for you, to see. Things are moving pretty well. We're getting slowed down a little bit in the mud here recently, but other than that, everything's going pretty good. I always like to show you this from our Facility Master Plan really steering committee that set forth our mission for the bond, and hope you see some key words in there that show up in some of the pictures that we're going to see today. So Greeley West, again, 2002, we're getting closer and closer to that completion date. Since you've been out there the last time, you'll see the south wing is getting completed, both internally and externally. This picture is a couple weeks old, and you see the brick veneer finish going on the outside. And just a reminder of how close we are to the existing building. When you look down there by that yellow portable classroom, we are just feet away in our construction. But this is moving along very well. Here I love this picture of one of our CTEE spaces. This will be the ag lab, about 3,000 square foot lab. And you'll see there, those little walls I have welded out, there's about 7 welding bays there that kids, instead of welding in the middle of a kind of an open classroom that's a little sketchy, so to speak, will have individual professional welding bays to learn and do their welding in. So that's kind of an exciting in that picture. And if you go out to this site, really there's construction going on in 4 directions, from south to north, and then from the gym, which is north to the south, and then at the theater in the middle, and then from the theater to the north, and then back. And it's really phased construction, and that's so they can move all those cranes around and get the steel in. But this picture is from the theater, looking to the academic wing, which was not in place the last time you visited. So that steel that you see there on the right below the blue crane, that second floor is actually the science wing, math wing is below, and then there'll be an additional wing like this a little bit further to the south, which that steel is going up as we speak. Drywall, you might think, what's the deal with drywall? But what's important about this picture is when you think about the first day of school backwards, we have to demolish the existing building. And so we are finishing rapidly, trying to finish the south end of the building on the interior, because we will actually be moving students from the existing building into that south end of the building in the CTE and art wings, et cetera, so that we can start demoing some of those outbuildings next spring in about 9 months. And so it's important that the work on the inside is going at an accelerated pace so that we can be in a timely fashion in doing that. Main hallway looks a little wet because it's been raining, but things are going very well there on the inside. Next, Krista McAuliffe STEM Academy. Completion date really just after Thanksgiving of next year. This is moving along fast. As you were out there last for the beam ceremony, walls have gone up. This is a view from the second floor. Looking up through the clear story there, you see a lot of light, a lot of windows. And this is pretty exciting for McAuliffe. Here, just above the orange lift, Really, that'll be the new front entrance there off of 4th Street. And so as that gets framed in there, they'll be able to do more work on the inside. You also see the addition to the cafeteria there on the right, which is just above the green dumpster. So that's pretty exciting work there. And then also getting framed in and under cover, these are the 2 new kindergarten classrooms on the west side of the building, which will give us those 4 kindergarten classrooms at that end. So that's great. Once they get the roof on and that buttoned up, they can start to work on the inside. You saw some of this when you were there, but I want you, when they see McAuliffe renovation, I also want you to think about Chapello renovation, and I want you to think about Dos Rios renovation, which we're doing this summer as part of our summer work, because they'll be getting similar things. And so this is just an old picture, meaning this was 2 months ago in the existing McAuliffe building. And you see the big projector and the unit ventilator that's really noisy, ceiling fans. Original carpet. If anyone wants a piece, I can get you some. But this is the renovated classroom, and you see LED lights, which are new. The furniture will be replaced. That is not new furniture yet. That'll come this summer. You see the new HVAC unit, which we talked about in the corner, which will draw in fresh air from the outside and then drop it. You see where I have the arrows pointed to the ceiling into 4 places into the classroom, so we won't need this big loud fan that is as far away from the thermostat as you can get in the classroom and is really inefficient. Also, in terms of technology, you see a smart board, flat screen on the wall. That is actually too small. Because of lead times, we do have some that will fit that space. They gave us some little ones just to get started. And then the carpet, I think we talked about before, that is really a gray. We got 2 classrooms there where they installed the wrong carpet, but we have that all figured out. So that'll look pretty nice. So in Chapello, which is going to be open in the fall of 2022, here's a picture from 2 days ago. They've started to break ground. On there you can see the kids on the other side of the construction fence, as I would be being thrilled to watch an excavator work. So that work is coming along. We've broken ground. That's where the addition will be on that side. I don't know why I keep doing that. And so that's coming along, and that is on track. And that will also open in 2022. In terms of the history, we had a long discussion with the staff there. They've been doing a lot of things on the inside of the building. They have murals, painted murals. They have handprints. They have pianos. They have ceiling tiles. And so we met with the whole staff and kind of gave them options on things we're going to do. Some of the murals, that time has come and gone. Some of the murals they'd like to save. So we're digitizing some of the murals and can bring those back into a vinyl form and put on the wall. All the handprints have been digitized, and we will come back and I think the staff agreed on having like a virtual or a video production where we can keep those and scroll those every year, put them on the website, maybe by class. And then during the year, we'll have a place where probably my crew will assemble these boards where classes can go up every year and do their handprints. Then we'll digitize it, and then the next year we'll replace that and move on. So very much preserving a lot of the history in the building, and taking it kind of into a digital format, but allow them to do things for each class that comes in. Toynton Academy of Pre-Engineering, fall of 22. I'll say it again, you're gonna be busy that fall. Site prep, since you've been out there for the groundbreaking, this is what's going on. And this picture is our site for our school, our site for our athletic fields. There's gonna be new city streets in there. There is gonna be additional golf holes in there, and there's some property that we sold at the last board meeting. So that will take shape and is coming along pretty well. It is muddy out there. I think I have a picture here. These aggregate piers started underneath the foundation, drilling these holes and compacting it with gravel the day after the groundbreaking ceremony. They just finished this last week. this process last week, and as soon as it gets a little dry, they'll be putting foundation footings in here, which is supposed to happen really as soon as it gets dry. Goodness. Madison Elementary School, completion date fall of 2023. We are underway with our architect, and we've already had actually 3 DAG meetings so far. This is a picture after DAG number 2, which is our architects, same architects that are doing Greeley West High School, same team. And here they're working with staff and parents on showing some different sites, site plans, just in general box forms, and getting kind of a pulse on what do you like, what don't you like, what do you like adjacent to what, how close do you want the playground to the cafeteria or the music area to the gym, kind of things like that. Where do you like the parking? So the architect team came with 3 different examples and is getting feedback from the parent group. Those have been great meetings. The Madison DAG team, design advisory group, they've done a great job working with the architects. And just if you can't visualize it, and again, we're going to be building on site with a little round building. Here's one. We've actually got the site plans down to 2, which means we could end up with A or B or something in between. It's not decided yet. But here's one way to do it with really your entrance and exit off of 24th and 25th Avenue. And here's a different one that's got the green area over to the east, parking to the west. We actually had a meeting with the city of Greeley today with stormwater, with the planning department, with traffic and all the players in that, and talked about some of these options as we get a little further with design. But right now, none of these have been selected. Those are all concepts. Phase 2 improvements. This summer, we'll be working at Hyman Winograd and Bella Romero K-4-8. They're all sister schools. They're getting a lot of the similar work done with secure entries, door hardware, paint, carpet, and HVAC needs where necessary. Dos Rios is getting all those similar common work, but we made a decision while we had the architects and engineers on board that we were going to totally blow up their HVAC system in their classrooms. They had heaters over there in every room with air in the ceiling, very inefficient, very loud, very outdated. The only system like that we had in our district, and believe it or not, we do believe in heating our buildings, our school buildings. But we took it upon ourselves to take the time to do that right. So Dos Rios is getting a total makeover. That'll affect every single classroom in that building this summer. Got a touchy mouse here. Okay, and so just an example of the secure entries that will be in place for these 3 schools. It'll be real similar at Dos Rios, but you'll have to buzz and come into, this will be the new storefront glass there, secure into the vestibule. Once you're in the vestibule, you have to stay until you're allowed into either the office or the school. So if you're just picking up your kid, your student may be just escorted while you wait in the vestibule. But that's kind of the design similar to what you've seen at the other schools last summer. It's just that these we don't have to build into the building. We're actually making the vestibule as it is and taking it to the outside, which preserves that hallway space on the inside. In terms of career and college readiness, the 3 sister schools are all doing something similar. This is their media center here to the top, and the old computer lab down here in the bottom right corner. All kids have a device. We don't really need a computer lab. These schools are all getting smart labs with the Success Foundation and using MLO funds. So actually what we're doing is extending the wall here in the computer lab out into the library by about 12 feet, giving it extra square footage a lot of visibility and connect from the library center into what will be the new smart lab. And then each building is designed how they're going to use the media center. Some want to be able to bring in large things, museum exhibits, some more wet, more dirty, more reading, quiet. So they've each divided that area into zones for learning. And so we'll show that in what's on the floor, and in some cases, clouds, dropped ceiling clouds if it's a quiet reading area. So each school's doing that a little different, but that's their general idea. And then phase 3 improvements. Phase 3 improvements will be in the summer of 22. So the next summer out, so we've already began talking about secure entries briefly with architects. We have architects on board already for these. At Heath Middle School, Franklin, Jefferson, Maplewood, Greeley Central, those are all going to be very complicated. They're not cookie cutter schools. They're going to be, each one is going to be very unique in what we do to it. So we had to start the discussions early before we can get into design. And we've already met with Stacy's team and Wes and Anthony. We're all meeting with these schools about their career and college readiness ideas and how that is tied into curriculum. Additional bond projects, we have Best Grant roofs. So at Heath and Northridge, we have those up for May 19th is our meeting date. So we're going to try to get those for basically a 50-50 match. Not quite, but basically a 50-50 match. And if we get those, we've been very successful in Best Grant roofs in the last couple years. That just allows our bond dollars to go further into these projects. And then with our boundary study that we completed, that you had a meeting on and learned about at, I don't know, our last bond meeting or before that, really some of the results of that have led us to the need for putting additions onto 2 elementary schools. So that would be, those 2 schools would be Martinez and Meeker. And so very quickly, I mean, to get this done in that timeline, we need to start now to get that done. So I presented this to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee 2 weeks ago at that quarterly meeting, asked for the use of bond proceed funds to be used to add additions onto those 2 schools. So the total is about 30,000 square foot additions, and the estimated cost up to 18 million. I've tried to estimate that to be high. I don't want to go low, but it's high. Anticipating construction costs are going to go up a little bit, and making sure we're covered for the square footage. And with the classrooms, we also have to figure in custodial closets, data closets, small group room, restrooms, things like that. And the hallway is square footage. So you can't just say, take your classroom square footage and multiply it by 6 or 8. You have to add all that extra space in there too. So, so that's something that we're getting to work on also. So I think that brings our total number of schools right now that we're working on at somewhere between 14 and 16, or close to that. And then also we have a study that we're doing with the Cunningham Group. We own these 3 pieces of property, A, which is Martinez, B, which is Billy North, and then C is the CDOT site. We own all 3 of those. So I've had them put together some site plans, which maybe we'll show you in the future, that can show how can we connect all those. There are some things there that just need to be torn down, but if we come up with some other uses for either CDOT and to start B, how can we put that all together in like a campus format so it flows a little bit better. So just so you know that that's going on. And then in terms of deferred maintenance, okay, so here, what I wanted to do is show you some of the data I've been tracking in a crude form. I'm going to show you 2 spreadsheets. These spreadsheets really were intended for me, to be used by me with my people. So if they don't make sense to you, I can probably try to convert it into a different form. But I'm a visual learner and I'm all about color. So all I want you to see is color. I don't want you to have to read columns or anything else. And so if you look at this first spreadsheet and you see the year 2016 in the top, this is before I started, which is no big deal. This is really before MLO, before the MLO passed. And so what I did when I started was sat down with all my managers and we took all the systems in a building, starting with the big ones, roof, HVAC and such. And then we talked about years to replacement. And most of our systems were past their lifespan by years, by up to 10 years. So red meant needs to be replaced past its lifespan. You have a hot water heater at home, you know that the lifespan of that is probably 12 to 15 years, right? So that's how we looked at these systems. So here's where we were. You see some green there because we built Prairie Heights. Yes, but everything else, roofs, things were 10 years past when they should have been replaced. And so with MLO, the passage of the MLO, came the opportunity to spend some of that money in deferred maintenance, and then we passed the bond and started doing work. And so since really the MLO passed, here where you see green, green means that it's done. It's green, it's new, it's been replaced. And as you see the red to the right, that stuff's the easy stuff, like paint, exterior paint, interior paint. That stuff, as we go through all of our phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, that will all get filled in with the general bond work that we're doing in all of our buildings. But the big things to the left that you see, roof, building automated systems, boilers, chillers, those things run in increments of millions of dollars, $300,000 for a chiller. A lot of this work we have done, and we have put it on schedule for the next replacement. So I wanted you to be able to see what has been done with MLO and bond dollars. And so we feel pretty good of how we're catching up with deferred maintenance. The key thing will be is the next cycle when it comes time to replace, so we don't have to replace everything all at once. Again. So we're putting together a schedule so that we can do that. And also, we also said that we couldn't do everything with one bond. Things like window replacement are big things that will have to come down the road. Project budget updates. Right now, 8 of our 11 projects are tracking on target. 3 of them are a little over budget. McCullough, a lot because of the external renovation that we did with the heating and cooling on the inside, and then all the work we had to do out at the street. You're to see a right-hand turn lane being put in on 4th Avenue. We have to pay for that. So some of those things, but we're really close on budget. I mean, it's really close, but we're a little over. Dos Rios, we decided to invest in the HVAC system there, which has put us a touch over budget. I have presented that to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, and they agreed to cover those costs from proceeds with that. And then with Toynton, Toynton, we're developing a subdivision. So if you think back of that picture with the dirt, we are paying to put in the roads, the sewers, the sidewalks, the utilities. All of that comes at our cost. We sold the land recently, the other 20-some acres that we owned. With that development, we will get reimbursed for 50% of those costs of the street, the utilities, and things like that. We also will get back the cost of selling the land. We will also, as that gets developed, get back our development fees we have through the IGA with the city of Greeley. However, Toynton will show that on the books, it's going to be a little bit over budget, but the district, we're basically bringing those revenues back in to the pool. So with 11 projects under construction or having been done, with the total budget at the top, right now we're about 19 million under budget. And that's our reality for today. Do you have any questions?
I'm not sure if we could have any more any questions after that much information, but I bet we do. And I think Ms. Mueller has one to lead us off.
So a couple things, actually like two. One, you mentioned that there isn't going to be any demolition work at Greeley West until the spring. Is there nothing really happening with the site in the summer, taking out
Yep.
portables, for example, or anything like that?
No, because we have the school year next year, so we
Okay.
can't do anything with the portables. We are going to go into the middle of Greeley West this summer and do abatement in the office area. So we're going to gut out the office, and when Jeff and his crew come back, they're going to get some leftover carpet we have thrown on the floor and some leftover desks to work at. They know that, they're fine with that, to get them through next year. That way we don't have to take time the following summer to do that abatement before we demolish it.
Okay. I have parents all the time who ask the same thing I do, which is this amazing, build and demo and build is when is the other part of the school going to be built? And I assumed it was next summer, not this coming, but the following. So that's kind of where we are on track with that.
This is going to be built to the last day with demolition coming this way, because we have to put a parking lot on the building,
Okay.
which is where the current building is, so.
There is some additional demo occurring. So the auxiliary gym came down.
Yeah, the auxiliary gym
right.
came down.
And what else will come down?
Probably next spring,
Yes.
like in March, they'll probably start with the theater
Okay.
at that end after that production. So, it'll be a little bit, but we're still going to have a bunch of kids in the building. So
This is a fascinating way to do construction and I just think parents are mesmerized by the way that this is sequenced so tightly. So that's why I ask. It's good to know.
That's the contractor. The contractor and the architect have worked together. They have changed how they phased it because of the availability of steel. Midterm, they changed, well, we need to move over here and do this because we can get the steel for that. We have to get it now because it's going to be short. And so there's a lot going on there, and it has not slowed down with all of that.
That's amazing.
And we can't have it slow down.
And then the other thing I just want to say is I know, Kent, that your team's working a lot. I hope you're sleeping occasionally, but I have to tell you, I so appreciate the spreadsheet. And I think if anything can give us a visual of how important our voters are to the whole process with passing the MLO and the bond, that spreadsheet showed it right there.
Yeah.
You're able to fix things. Buildings don't get younger and they do have systems that have to be replaced. So I really appreciate you bringing that to us to show us what has occurred with deferred maintenance.
Thank you.
Ms. Solis.
Under budget. Bravo. I think that's another testament to the work that we do here at the district. We take our tax dollars and, our voters very serious, our community members that invest and choose to vote for a bond or an MLO, and, to let them know that we are doing this as, responsibly as possible, even though we know costs are going up, materials are going up. The fact that, we can still plan this in the way that you have, you're just doing a great job. And I can tell you as a board member, I am so excited to see not only this plan, but the plan for the future, and just being conscious of that, which I don't think we've done as good of a job before. And so to really see this plan by administration and the work that you're doing to really think ahead and think of our student population and our community, I can't thank you enough for that. I feel really comfortable and confident that, we really have a plan going forward and that we are going to continue that track. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I will confess, I listened to Tom Norton and a couple other people as we were beginning to talk about the bond, about the importance of that. And so I had started that when I first got this position because, there was no record. So it seemed to make sense.
Yeah, it was a huge responsibility and a big thing to take on. So you've done an amazing job. Dr. Pilch did a great job putting you in this position. We've, seen her do that numerous times in this district, and you just continue to amaze us. And You know, there is a lot of work to do. I mean, this is
Yeah.
exciting talk, but I know it's also probably exhausting for you. But keep up the good work. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Don't see any other questions from board members. I do have one. Mr. Henson, when we first passed the bond, one of our objectives was to get as many kids as possible out of our portable and temporary classrooms. And I think when we first passed it, we said that maybe we could get about a third, eliminate a third of those temporary classrooms. With the additions at Meeker and Martinez, does that increase the number of children we can get out of temporary classrooms?
Yes. Don't ask me the percentage, but yes. Yeah, we're doing a third just by doing the 5 big building projects that we're doing. And then anything else that we can do is just added on to that. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
And thank you for this presentation again, as
Okay.
Ms. Elise said. Thank you for all your hard work. Yeah, we do hope you're sleeping sometimes. So,
We're
but thank you.
not quite halfway through. We're not over the hump yet, so there's still a lot to do. All right. Thanks.
Next item of business is an Innovation 2020 update, strengthening partnerships, priority 1 in the district, and priority 2, parents and families. And so again, Dr. Pilch, I'll give this to you.
Thank you, President Matthews. I will just remind you all that we are coming to a close on our updates on our Innovation 2020. We have begun to implement Innovation 2030, and this is really bringing us to, if not the last, very near to our last update on Innovation 2020. So I'll introduce you Dr. Dattery, Assistant Superintendent of Academic Achievement, Mr. Wes Tuttle, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary School Leadership.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. President Matthews and Board of Education, Mr. Tuttle and I are pleased to share with you an update this evening regarding our work as it relates to strengthening partnerships, both priorities 1 and 2 within our I-2020 strategic plan. So as you know, this is our mission to engage every student in a personalized, well-rounded, and excellent education, preparing students to be college and career ready. And furthermore, that within this particular update tonight, we feel like 2 values really speak to the work. First, in that we build positive relationships with students, families, and communities. And second, that we promote access, opportunity, and choice. While we know that all 4 of our goal or focus areas are very important to our work, tonight we really focus on strengthening partnerships, in which District 6 enhances student success by communicating, engaging, and collaborating with our communities and school partners. This evening, we'll be sharing updates related to both Priority 1, enhancing partnerships between and among programs and schools, as well as Priority 2, strengthening partnerships with parents and families.
The target related to both of these priorities is 80% of students surveyed will indicate satisfaction. The instrument utilized to gather this data is the Panorama Survey administered annually. We gather different data to indicate satisfaction from the 2 different categories as it relates to each of these priorities. In relation to our first priority, the objectives outlined on this slide focus on establishing partnerships to bridge transitions for our students, kindergarten through post-secondary. In relation to our second priority, the objectives outlined on this slide focus on enhancing resources to support our families, including systems of communication for parents to access information, which has been critical over the last year. Let's spend a few moments on each priority, starting with priority 1. As we enhance partnerships between and among programs and schools, we have some intentional focus on how we transition students from preschool to kindergarten, from 5th grade to 6th grade, and from 8th grade to 9th grade, even in Zoom this year. In addition, we have meetings to support students that are identified as special education, gifted and talented, as well as students learning English as a second language. These meetings are always focused on setting the students up for success at the next level. We've also supported vertical alignment within our system, supporting foci like International Baccalaureate, AVID, and pre-engineering as we look to support our students kindergarten through 12th grade. The Gear Up grant provided direct support to the 2020 cohort in transitioning to Ames and UNC through virtual check-ins throughout the summer of 2020. Zoom meetings for financial aid, scholarship, admissions orientation, and referrals to post-secondary support communities to support our students with matriculation and to prevent summer melt. Over the course of this year, 2020-2021, we've held virtual FAFSA events that have been hosted, and then as restrictions have begun to open up this spring semester, counselors and the Gear Up staff have hosted in-person FAFSA events where students were also provided support with scholarship and college application support. Additional events were hosted at the high schools to support students in the completion of those FAFSAs, scholarship, and college applications, as well as support to those going directly to the workforce and joining the military. Lastly, we've had a focus on youth in foster care and the intentional supports for students experiencing high mobility and out-of-home placement by engaging essential internal and external educational stakeholders to inform students transitioning to remain in school of origin or to prepare for their receiving school. While our data this year has dipped slightly to 75%, we are strategizing and working towards improving parent satisfaction. One strength in this year's data was parents' response to, in general, how much respect do you think your child has for the staff? That had a positive response of 90%. Our lowest area was, to what extent does your child enjoy going to school? And we wonder if that could have been impacted by COVID when we think about the need for cohorting, tight schedules, mask wearing, quarantines, etc. When we think about our progress data, first of all, graduation rates for foster care is up 50% compared to only 35.7% last year. In addition, we had conversations about many of our students as they are transitioning from one level to the next to provide a seamless transition for students and any necessary supports that they may need, whether that be behavior or academic, or students that are struggling, or students that need acceleration, that we set them up for success at that receiving level. Some of the progress data. Gear Up has provided scholarships for 127 students in the 2020 cohort, totaling over $82,000. The scholarship is also available to the 2021 cohort students, and Gear Up advisors are currently working with those students. In addition, we continue to have growth in the concurrent enrollment as we've partnered with local colleges and universities, with 720 students participating in concurrent enrollment this year. Let me pass it back to Dr. Stacy Dattery.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. There are several actions that we've also taken as a system this year to support communication with families. First, the team collectively has provided many avenues for supporting students and families with mental health resources. The sharing of resources like 10 things you can do at home and learning at home, as well as SEL, what is it and how can I teach it to my child, have all been shared through our enhanced Mental Health Matters webpage. This page includes resources for parents, teachers, and students, including a new referral for counseling supports and our new bully prevention referral form that allows all interested parties to report a need for support with bullying or harassment so that can be addressed. As a result of intentional partnerships then with Centennial BOCES, District 6 Family Center liaisons have identified student and family experiencing homelessness or of migrant status through a Google referral form process and have been able to provide many different timely services and supports throughout COVID this past year. Furthermore, partnering with the IRC has offered continued access to adult education and has increased communication in multiple languages. In order to ensure understanding of the virtual setting, bilingual how-to videos have been created and shared through the Family Center. Across the district, teachers and counselors have shared their excitement about increasing connectedness with students, parents, and guardians through Zoom. And specifically, our mental health teams have increased the number of home visits and Zoom conferences to interact with families regarding their attendance, student attendance, social emotional needs, and celebrations. Students and families are connecting at increased rates through texting and online communication platforms such as Class Dojo. Some of you might have used that in the past with your students. Of course, with Zoom and with Google Hangouts. And all of that has increased parent participation in different ways than what we have done in the past. An increased number of home visits have been done this year as well to connect with parents and families regarding academics or to deliver basic needs at times. And students and their families have been sincerely receptive and appreciative. Enhancing and strengthening collaborative efforts with external stakeholders has also been essential in securing resources and supports for students and families. Anticipating the increase of community needs, Colorado Youth for a Change partnered with our district by placing 4 bilingual student engagement liaisons at the Family Center. Their support with home visits, phone calls, and in-person and virtual tutoring for students has been essential, and particularly to our students in our online learning program. As mentioned, the virtual setting has offered us a pipeline to connect with the larger community. Virtual book studies and art projects have been put in place to help students and families address trauma and coping through COVID. It's gone beyond simply staying connected to schools and has become a space for healing. Other efforts affiliated with the World Food Bank, Assistance League, and Cumbres have provided thousands of meals, clothing for students in Title I schools, and timely literacy supports at the primary level. Now, when we review our outcome data related to Priority 2, we have seen an overall increase from 61% in 2017 to 78% in 2020. This year, our data did decline. Primarily, we believe similar to what Mr. Tuttle shared with you in relation to questions and as they related to parents and families' experiences with schools through COVID. While our buildings, teachers, and people across the district have done many different things to engage parents in different meaningful ways, the questions certainly did indicate different levels of partnership and had its levels of constraint this last year. That said, we have also increased our parent participation numbers continually over the years. So in 2017, just to put it in perspective, we had only 232 parent surveys completed and 464 in 2018. So much fewer than this last year. Last year we had 3,106, and then this current year, we actually totaled 4,249 parent responses. So that has certainly increased over time, and we are grateful for that. As a result of that increased parent and family participation, we are gaining a more accurate picture of overall parent satisfaction. Community support from IRC has been amazing, providing us with the ability to reach students and families whose primary language is Burmese, French, Karenni, Malay, Somali, Spanish, and Swahili. The partnership with IRC translators has ensured that those aforementioned languages, parents and families who speak in those languages are provided translation services both visually as well as verbally via voice recordings. And in relation to progress data, 100% of our schools are accessing the ParentLink Messenger system and manage attendance messages, nutrition messages, in addition to weekly communication. It is data-driven and can track pertinent data through Infinite Campus. It can be used for parents, families, and staff members individually to share important information with parents and families. When reviewing school Mint data after 2 years of implementation, we have realized that nearly 24% of our parents, representing 1,873 students, accessed school Mint for open enrollment in the fall of 2020 for this current upcoming school year then. Of those open enrollments this past year, 72% were accepted into their school of choice. And that is in addition Please note, that's in addition to the current students who are already open enrolled in their school of choice. So finally, we end this evening's presentation with you about the recommendations that we have for our revised strategic plan, I-2030, and noting that there are really two goals. The first is around strengthening relationships with parents and families. So continuing that work, developing and implementing a comprehensive pre-K through 13 family partnership plan, as well as developing and implementing staff training that will continue to further the partnerships and the opportunities to engage with families. And then goal 2 is about communicating and collaborating with external stakeholders, including businesses, local government, and community organizations. And again, developing and implementing a plan so that we are partnering with community members and groups effectively. And second, to develop and implement a plan for District 6 staff and students to contribute back to the community. So both, that is fully underway, as you well know. Those have been brought to you in prior sessions, and then the work of the action teams will, coming up here in the next couple of months, will really flesh out what are the action steps that we will then take to further the work with partnerships and engagement with our families. So thank you for your time tonight, and Mr. Tuttle and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
May have a few for you.
Okay.
Thank you both. Ms. Elise has a question.
So in working with the IRC in translation, are there any fees that we pay for that, or do they?
Great question. We actually do.
Okay.
We did work out, Ms. Sponsler and myself, and along with a few others, worked with the IRC this year and said, you know, how can we help to contribute and pay for services, so to speak? And so we worked out a minimal contract, but certainly it was helpful for both.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
I think a lot of times when we talk about translation,
Yeah.
I think people expect it to be done for free, or they just use people that they have.
Sure.
But it's, I mean, very valuable, and we need to make sure
Yes.
that people are compensated for that. So
Thank
you
you.
for that. Great plan. I appreciate your work around this. I love listening to the home visits. What kind of training happens for the people that do the home visits?
Great question. So the 4 vistas, those liaisons that I spoke to that Colorado Youth for a Change has assigned to our district, they do and did do training around home visits. So primarily those folks have gone out, and then additionally, folks in the Family Center have received additional training, and we do make sure that they know protocols and things to look for and how to approach homes and families and students in the home. We also know that it's important that they go in pairs, and so they do go out in duos and make sure that they're conducting those home visits in safe ways. And they do, like I said, they all have training to do that.
Thank you. And I appreciate you working with the Family Center. They have amazing people working there, and,
Yes.
and just
Thank
their
you.
passion for community is just really great to listen to and watch, and to see all the ideas that they have and the outreach that has happened. So thank you for working with them. I love the Family Center, so I have to make sure and do a plug for them.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any additional questions, but just want to thank you again for the presentation, and also thank you to our partners out there for the IRC, Centennial BOCES, North Range, so the food bank, so many partners, and as we said at the beginning, it takes the entire community, especially in difficult times like this. And so, to the degree that you can, thank our partners for us. We
Thank
certainly
you.
appreciate them. Our last item tonight is public participation regarding non-agenda items. And we have one person to speak to us tonight, Ms. Michelle Selgren, on the topic of schools. As Ms. Selgren makes her way to the podium, just remind everyone, earlier in the meeting, we dedicated a time to hear from community about topics regarding or relating to agenda items. This portion of the agenda provides the community an opportunity to present brief comments or pose questions to the board On other items relating to Greeley Evans School District 6, if you have written testimony or speaker handouts, Ms. Sundgren, you can submit those to our board secretary. Our board typically does not engage in discussion or provide any immediate response to the input, but will ask district staff to respond as appropriate. Our board is committed to providing a safe environment where all members of the school community are treated with dignity and respect. And we expect speakers to exercise their speech rights responsibly. And so with that, Ms. Sundgren, you'll have 2 minutes to speak to us. Thank you.
Is it okay if I take my mask off while I'm talking, or no?
No, we'll have to keep the mask on, but please speak into the microphone so we can hear you well. Thank you.
Okay. So I came here today because I wanted to talk about how everything differs school to school, that parents don't get the same response from one school to the next. The reason that I say that is because I have 3 children that are currently in the school district and one that's headed in when he turns 5 next year, or this year, and then goes in next year. And the response from each different school has been different. I have one child at AK Hyman in 5th grade, and I have another child at Prairie Heights Middle School. And then I have another student at Greeley West High School. And I feel that I get a different response from each school in regards to what is district policy. When it comes to offenses via other students and satisfaction and safety in your schools. At my son's school at Hyman, they're like, oh, it's district policy. And I'm like, wow, I'm surprised because when I talked to Prairie Heights and Greeley West, that's not the same school policy that I receive from them. So that's my concern, is that you guys are implementing great policies maybe, but not all of them are being applied evenly across the board. For example, in regards to bullying, my daughter has had a difficult time at Greeley West, both last year and this year, in regards to the environment that is set up there in relation to male and female student interactions. My daughter, being a female, has to put up with male students who are inappropriate and staff that doesn't necessarily step in, and I don't blame them because that's the environment that's been set up by the administration there. And then in regards to Prairie Heights, my son is every year, last year and this year, has been picked on, and nothing's really done about it. So I'm shocked. But in the other opposite side, I have my son at Hyman, and he's actually the aggressor. And they applied, that no nonsense first response, like, policy. And he seems to feel safer there than my other students do, because it's a no nonsense policy. First offense, we're doing something about it. We're fixing the problem, as compared to Prairie Heights, where it's conversation, or Greeley West, where it's like, I don't think this is really necessary. And I'm like, I do think it's necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Sundgren.
Thank you.
Well, this concludes our meeting for tonight. Just a reminder, board members, we have some special recognition ceremonies coming up. We have one on Wednesday where we will recognize our retiring staff. And so congratulations to our teachers, administrators, and all of our staff who have reached retirement. We look forward to celebrating that with you on Wednesday. And then in just a week after that, 10 days from now, somewhere in there, we'll start with graduation ceremonies. So congratulations to all of our 2021 graduates out there. An amazing accomplishment in any year, an extraordinary accomplishment this year. So congratulations to everyone. This meeting is adjourned.